Good morning. I have the great pleasure and honor of introducing our next speaker, who is Dr. Abraham Worenklein. Dr. Worenklein has been in practice for more than 30 years as a clinical and forensic family psychologist. He specializes in the evaluation of high conflict and highly litigious situations involving parental alienation, child sexual abuse allegations, and relocation disputes. He is an expert witness in courts in Canada and the United States and has presented at professional conferences in Canada, the United States, and Europe, as well as 2 previous conferences organized by the Canadian Symposium. He's testified in more than 600 trials and has been an expert witness in some of the early groundbreaking cases in Quebec on parental alienation. Dr. Worenklein received his PhD in Montreal at the University of Montreal and is a professor today at Dawson College. He is an adjunct at Concordia University, where he has taught forensic psychology, psychology and the law. And in addition to the high conflict family evaluations that he conducts, he has also been certified as a family mediator with advanced training. Besides being licensed by the Order of Psychologists of Quebec, he is also a member of the Canadian Register of Health Service Providers in Psychology and has a certificate of professional qualification by the Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards. Dr. Worenklein is he's also a very kind and humorous man. He's very well respected by his students, his legions of friends and family. He's a proud grandfather. He is admired by mental health professionals and lawyers across the United States and Canada. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Abraham Worenklein.
Thank you, Joe. What I'd like to cover today is, I guess, more applied rather than theoretical, because what I'd like to deal with are issues of themes and detection factors in parental alienation. And I guess one way to start would be just to give you a little bit of, my own sense is that children today grow up very quickly, even in nuclear families. When the family basically dissolves, the family structure dissolves, the nuclear family structure dissolves, children grow up too quickly, particularly with parental alienation syndrome being in effect. I'm reminded of the story that I think I said previously. I'm reminded of the 2 5-year-olds, and one 5-year-old tells the other 5-year-old, "There was a big fight in my house the other day." And the other 5-year-old says, "Really? What happened?" And the first 5-year-old says, "My mother found a contraceptive on the veranda." And the other 5-year-old says, "Really? What's a veranda?" Now, unfortunately, when we take a look at parental alienation, what we need to take into account is that the alienating parent raises the status of the child to being an equal with all the privileges of having equal status. The child learns, however, that such love and such status is conditional upon the child's agreeing with that parent. Now, what we have to take into account is that the child has to maintain loyalty to that parent, and if the child deviates from that loyalty, that love, which was conditional, is basically gone. There's unconditional love with an alienating parent, and basically what we need to take into account is that with normal development, a child who gets conditional love is unable to become self-sufficient, is unable to become independent, is unable and not allowed to make mistakes, not allowed to explore the world around them, and also has great difficulty in developing self-confidence. Now, what we need to take into account is that the alienating parent, the last thing that this parent wants is for that child to become independent. And consequently, that love that that child is being given basically is going to be purely and simply conditional. Now, if I take a look at the last couple of weeks, just to give you a little bit of a sense where I'm coming from, my mother really wanted us to go. I asked the kids, what happens when you refuse to go to visit your father? What is the reaction? What does your mother say to you? What does your mother do? My mother really wanted us to go because if we didn't, she would be breaking the law and could get into a lot of trouble. And that was repeated by several of the children independently. It had nothing to do about the importance of seeing their father. It was only the fact that this mother would get into trouble if they didn't go. In other words, what happens is that the father does not get any brownie points. The father gets demerit points because, could you imagine, because we don't go to my father, my mother might go to jail, which is what the children were told. My mother didn't like when we refused to go with our father. She said it won't do me any good because it will look like I helped you out of, I don't even know what I wrote here. She said it won't do me any good, okay, because it will make it look like I was just basically putting on a scene. She didn't tell me any other reason to go. Last week, a 5-year-old kid, first of all, the kid wanted to stay with the mother. The kid wanted to stay with the siblings. I said, it's really important for us to talk together. I developed the rapport. They went into the playroom. I spent some time with them. And finally, the 5-year-old agreed to come into the office where I basically, spent some time, next to her on another chair. And out of the blue, didn't say a word to the child in the office. Immediately, my dad is bad. He pulled my hair when I was small. My dad cut my mom's hand. My dad once threw a book at me. It was too hard for me. It hit my head. It hurt a little bad. My father asked me questions in the car. Another child. How do you feel when you go see your mother? I feel sad. I asked, is that how you really feel? No, that is what my father wanted me to say. He always talks badly about my mother and gets upset when I'd say that I had a good time with her. Let me give you a couple of others. This was a case that is going to court. The father had tape recorded the children in conversations with him and in conversations with their mother. The mother's attorney took it to court and wanted these transcripts thrown out of court, disallowed. The judge was very adamant. Not only are they allowed, I want to hear these tapes. I want to hear everything that goes on in the child's best interest. So let's take a look. Mother, that's it. And mother's telling this to the child. That's it. And you keep. You have to say it. If he says anything to you, just say, I hate you. I don't like you. I don't want to be with you. That's it. Even if he punishes you or something, say that. Don't be quiet. And the kid says, okay. That's what I used to do. Be quiet. And then look what he did. Control. He's just like a control freak, man. He just wants to control everything. He says he doesn't want me to talk to you on the phone. He doesn't want me to see you. Wants to control everything. You're not the 2-year-old kid that he has to control. Let's just go on, and then we could get into the meat of how this is done. Same situation, same case. Again, the mother, right. And then you can just tell him, say, Dad, don't call us here anymore, and don't you dare come and pick us up. We don't want you to go back, and we will not go back with you. The kid says, got it. Yeah, it's nonsense right now. And you fight for your rights, for your picture right now. How dare you take my mom's picture away from me? And then goes on a little bit further. I'm not going to go into all the detail. You should. Here's the same person. You should. I told you, call 911 tomorrow. You do that. Kid says, okay. Okay, and make a complaint that this woman is hurting us, another woman that's living with him. We don't want to be with her. We're scared, and we told our father, and he's not listening, and we want to be with our mom. And the kid says, yeah, you've got to do it. Okay, we will. She says his name, yeah. Complain about her in his absence, when he goes to work or something. Okay. Call and just say she's hurting us. She's mean. We're scared of her. And it goes on and on and on. So when we take a look, and again, I mean, I have emails as well from the child. One of them, there are a lot of them, but one of them, I really want to be with you because it's like prison here. He's torturing us really bad. I don't like it. And there was also a problem when I sent you that email saying, hey, dude, that email went into junk email. But don't worry, we will fix it. Well, write to you soon. We'll write to you soon. I love you, and I'm missing you lots. And the mother responds, I'll speak to you soon. So in other words, whatever is said negatively by the child is not undone. What we're going to do is we're going to look, this I think was covered by Amy Baker, the 8 characteristics of PAS. I don't want to go through that again. One needs to recognize that in order to be alienated by one parent, a child must identify very closely with that parent. This is more likely to occur if the child is living primarily or exclusively with that parent. The pressure put on the children to conform to their parents can be crude or subtle, but its effectiveness depends on the child's insistent desire to be loved and protected. By Bowlby, well known. Now, I remember having a kid doing a cult case quite a few years ago where a child told me that his father was the son of Satan. I questioned the child. I said, well, how does that make you feel? He said, that makes me feel terrible. My mother told me that, and I feel terrible. And I said, why does that make you feel so terrible? Because if he's the son of Satan, I'm the grandson of Satan. And what parents don't realize, and what professionals don't realize, there are a lot of professionals don't understand the implications of parental alienation. It's probably the worst or one of the worst forms of child abuse. A child has an identity. When a child is alienated to believe that one parent is all bad, that has to affect the child. When a child has a great relationship with a parent and then is being turned against that parent, the child's sense of reality, what is real, what is not real. I like my dad. I like my mom. Now all of a sudden he's telling me that my mom is all bad, but I always liked him. It really messes up a kid dramatically. And these kids are really cheated out of their childhood very, very badly. I love this cartoon. I showed it previously. You have a child going to sleep, and he has pictures of his father on the wall. And the mother says, the caption is, I put them up after the divorce so he knows his father is still part of his life. Now, it's very sad, and I want to also interject. I want to make a statement as well. Parental alienation takes place by fathers and by mothers. While it may be more prevalent when it's done by mothers, please understand there is a significant amount of parental alienation being done by fathers. One of the first cases that really I guess one of the most important judgments, I guess, in Quebec was a few years ago by an individual who now runs a deprogramming center in Texas, where basically all of the kids were programmed. And I remember that when the kids were evaluated, every kid was evaluated individually, and every kid gave the same set of reasons why they did not want to go with their mother. The exact same reasons, the same order. Here's one that you might enjoy. You have kids, 2 kids in a sandbox. I'm staying together for the sake of my parents. And very often what happens with these kids is that they feel they're stuck in the middle. And often they have to agree with the father. When they go with the mother, they have to agree with the mother. They don't know if they're coming or going. If alienating parents would love the children half as much as the child hates the other parent, I'm sorry, I apologize. If the alienating parent would love the children half as much as that parent hates the other parent, the kids would be in great shape. Unfortunately, what happens is that their feelings cloud their judgment, and the kid really is relegated to a very, very minor role as long as I'm able to get back to the other parent. And here you got one. My mom has a new boyfriend, my dad has a new girlfriend, and all I got was a new therapist. It's very sad, you know, it's a cartoon. It's really, really sad because I've seen kids that have told me that basically each parent gets so involved in their own life with their new companion that basically they are not they're relegated to a very minor role in their lives. This is, okay, and we mentioned it, I think Dr. Campbell had mentioned it earlier or alluded to it. We have to differentiate between the alienated child and the estranged child. And that's extremely important. Often family law attorneys, family lawyers have a case where basically the child refuses to go to one parent. And again, it's got to be alienation. I got to tell you, it doesn't have to be alienation. You know, it may be that the child has valid and realistic reasons why that child does not want to go. Example, about 2 years ago, I saw a couple of girls who absolutely refused to go to their father. When I met with the girls, they basically gave me reasons why they refused. They said, whenever we go, he's bad-mouthing our mother. I can't stand that. Whenever we go, he's either watching television, sleeping, or drinking. He doesn't pay any attention to us. Why should we go? We have to differentiate, are there justifiable, realistic reasons? Or are there unrealistic reasons? And, you know, Kelly and Johnston make a good point. I don't agree with them on other stuff, but they make a good point that it does have to be differentiated. Now, here is the problem in alienation cases. Many mental health professionals are not familiar with parental alienation. Knowing that it exists, knowing a definition of it, does not mean that they know how to identify it, how to evaluate it. We'll get into some of that stuff today. But basically, it's extremely important that when parents choose a professional, whether it's for intervention or whether it's for evaluation, that they have to be sure that they get a professional that really knows the stuff cold. Many mental health professionals are not aware of the methods of detecting it, and many mental health professionals are empowering it. And I've seen that too often, that the child is going for counseling or for therapy with a professional who basically validates it. One case that comes to mind very recently, and it's unfortunate because this father has no access to the kids at all. The kids would come to supervised access. I think the person that runs the supervised access is here with us. And basically what they would do, the father would offer them, I'll buy you an ice cream. The kid, no, we have money. We've got money. No, we could buy it ourselves. The parent even thought, hey, I'm going to give the kid money so the kid wouldn't take anything from the father. But that's not the point. What happened in this particular case is that the professional that was chosen to see the kids was a professional at a women's shelter. The mother stated that basically the father, and I'm not saying that it was true or not true, but that basically the father had been abusive, had been violent, not to the kids, but to the mother. And it was felt, at least I had felt, that it had to be, somebody that was really independent, not out of the shelter. Not that this person worked with the mother, but there might have been an agenda there. And I was concerned. Right now, the father has absolutely no contact with the kids. Many community, this one I wanted to mention, and I'll answer a question that I think somebody had raised, somebody had submitted to Joe. Many community religious leaders are inadvertently feeding into it. And that is a problem that I'm beginning to see more and more. I spoke to a group actually in New York from it was in New York, but it was a group of people from the tri-state area who have either limited or no access to the kids, largely because of the involvement of religious leaders. And it's really heartbreaking to listen to these people talking about how great their relationship was. But unfortunately, things get carried to an extreme. Maybe I'm not the one to speak about it, but sometimes people get carried to an extreme when religion enters the picture. No, he's more religious than she is. No, the kid should be with him, shouldn't see her, etc., etc. And kids get alienated extremely, extremely quickly. This is from the judgment that I mentioned earlier, Judge Gomery, with the girls that basically refused to see the mother, and now the parents have a deprogramming program down in Texas. Judge Gomery wrote, hatred is not an emotion that comes naturally to a child. It has to be taught. The person who has taught the children is, and I put in this case, the father. They would be better off if he were to be removed as an influence upon their development until they are better able to withstand and reject his negative attitudes. Defendant has deliberately poisoned the minds of his children against the mother that they formerly loved and needed. In the court's opinion, a father who would act in this way represents a grave and persistent danger to the mental and emotional health of his children. And Judge Gomery did change custody. Anyway, so when we I think that Amy Baker went over that. What I'd like to do is deal with themes used in undermining the other parent. This is largely the work of Claywar and Rivlin, and I'm also going to get into some of the work of Joanna Rohrberg. Now, if we take a look at this, what alienating parents do is that they often will deny the existence of the other one. I'm not just talking about not including the name of the other parent on school records or emergency numbers in the school. I'm talking about never talking about don't mention his name here. Don't mention his name. Don't call him dad. Don't call her mom. Body language. Whenever the kid starts mentioning, my mom did this, the other parent just looks away, doesn't reinforce that at all, doesn't even pay attention to it. This one is key. Well, destroy photographs of the other parent. Forget about destroying photographs of the other parent. Going through the family album, every place that the mother is, they cut out the picture of the mother's head. I had one recently this past year where the father allowed the daughter, a preteen, to basically put up a picture of her mother on the wall and basically do dart practice. Anyway, we found out in an interesting way. But in any case, denial of existence. Not allow the child to have a picture of the other parent in the room. I'm not talking about like that cartoon you saw before. But basically not allowing is denying the existence. Not relaying. Father calls. And that, by the way, happens so often. Mother calls or father calls. Please tell the kids, or leaves a message on the answering machine. Kids are not told. Presents are not given. Nothing. The kid, it's just like the person doesn't exist. Not acknowledging and that happens often. What does a kid like? A kid likes to see both parents at a hockey event, at a basketball event, soccer event. But the other parent does not acknowledge the presence of the other parent and doesn't allow the kid to go to the other parent and say, "Hi, Mom," or "Hi, Dad." This can lead to an intense conflict of loyalty. And I should also add tremendous guilt. Reinterpreting positive events into negative events. So I see that Dad got you that nice binder for school. And I see that he also got you some nice pencils and crayons. I guess he's trying to buy you off. Sidetracking a child. The kid starts talking, "You know what I did with Dad today? This weekend oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, Jessica called you. You know what she said? She was so excited. She wants you to come over." Completely sidetracking it. Not informing the other parent. This one's so common. School meetings, dates, important events. I just had one. The kid graduated. The parent was not told. One of the parents was not told. And the child was not allowed to tell the other parent when the graduation was. The alienating parent may also tell the child when the parent does not show up for an event, "Hey, I guess he really didn't care to see the event. He really didn't care about your graduation. Hey, the guy was never told about it. The lady was never told about it." So again, the child just continues to interpret and misinterpret based on the false information that is provided to the child. Okay, so one theme that is often used is denial of existence. A second one that's often used, and I'll give you questions and I'll give you ways to evaluate the presence of each of these themes as well, unless there's another fire alarm. Indirect attacks against extended family. That's very common. One of Gardner's 8 characteristics or generalization to extended family. And by the way, that to me is key. Asking a child who refuses to see one of the parents, whether they've seen the uncles, the aunts, the grandparents on that parent's side. And often you'll find the answer is no. Very, very often. Career, they knock the career. They knock the living arrangements and the travel arrangements that they have, the activities that they do, the associates. And again, a third theme is the middleman syndrome. And this is done very, very frequently. The child is asked a question which really should not be given to the child. "Well, how do you feel about it if I were to keep you a little bit longer on the weekend?" Before the other parent is even, asked. "Do you want to spend more time with me? You seem to be happier this week than last week." The last one, I don't have as much a problem unless it goes together. "Well, would you like to spend more time? Would you want it to stay this way?" But the kid should not be involved in that. There's an incredible pressure on the child to make a choice, of which time is better, the time with the mother or the time with the father. And again, it creates a conflict of loyalty. Making a statement, "So vacation would have been so much more fun had we had more time together." And some people debate that. Hey, that's a pretty neutral statement. And my own sense is that by itself does not bother me. It's when it's in conjunction with other statements that we have a problem. "I don't know what's the matter with your mother. I don't know what's the matter with your dad. He's always been that way, but I don't know what happened. It might have been the background. It might have been the parents. It might have been other things." Giving the child a sense of they don't know what's wrong with it. And again, when the alienating pushes a trigger to incite the target parent. So for example, and this is so common, The alienating parent does not give the child messages. As a result, something happens. The father or the mother does not show up to a school event. The father gets very upset. The child happens to be there, unfortunately, and then the other parent, the alienating parent, says, I don't know what's the matter with your dad. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know why is he so excited? Even though that parent really does know what's going on. Then they make a comment on the inability of the parent to control their temper, despite the attempt to have a good conversation. And by the way, when you see alienated parents, when you see kids who are alienated, very often they do not want the parents to be next to each other because they're afraid that hell will break loose. I want you both to be at the soccer game, but I want you at this end of the field and I want you at that end of the field. And I don't want you to talk to each other. But it's because of that. In some cases, there's the need for the alienating parent. Well, that one I'm going to leave out for the time being. The ally syndrome. What do you think we should do? Here's a case. Kid comes to the office. We want joint custody. Or even better yet, we want sole custody. And the kid's a 6-year-old kid. So I say, okay, I understand you're saying that you want sole custody. Who's we? Me and my dad. Oh, okay, let me write that down. I want to remember that. What do you mean by sole custody? You know, no, I think I know, but I'm not sure. What do you mean? What do you think it means? Sole custody. You know what it means. Sole custody. I said, I think I know, but I'd like to know what you think it means. So the kid tells me, well, if you don't know what sole custody is, I don't think you should be doing this kind of work. But the fact of the matter is that the kid did not know what sole custody was. They simply did not know. Very often they take on the terminology, it's been discussed a great deal. So, the what? We're on the same page on that. Do you think it's fair for your father to want to have the whole spring vacation? What would you do if you were me? Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm only 5 years old. What do you want from me? And that's one of the biggest problems. These kids are parentified. The email that I had read you earlier, I only read you a couple of them. First of all, I hate my new hockey stick. And if you want me to break it, the kid says to the mother, writes to the mother, I will. I am very sorry about the sleeping bag, which he forgot. I just forgot, but don't worry about it because I will get it. I love you, and I'm missing you lots. No matter what happens, I will love you and mean it. And I have transcripts where the kid was trying to make the parent, really trying to console the parent, to commiserate with the parent, to make the parent feel better, to say whatever the parent wanted to hear, even to the point of agreeing to call 911. Okay? Because that's what the parent wanted. Do you think we should ask for, okay, do you see what I've had to live with for the past 10 years? The ally. The parent makes the child into an ally. We're in this together. And by the way, when I want to just throw something out, it's not the right place, but I want to make sure I tell you. Whenever you see a few children who are alienated, please interview the children separately. I have seen this repeatedly. They make a pact. They become allies for each other. They're afraid to say something in front of the others because they know that we have an agreement. Please interview them separately. And if they want to know why, you tell them. I want to make sure, depending on the age of the kids, I want to make sure that one does not influence the other, which is the reason. Another thing I want to mention, again, it's a little bit out of place. When a kid could say that I don't want to see my father. I don't want to see my father. I can't stand him. I don't want to see him at all. And because he's mean and he lies and he's cheap and please remember, whatever the kid says and whatever the father does, it's not going to be good enough if the child is alienated. My father's cheap. What do you mean he's cheap? He took me to McDonald's. That's all he does, take me to McDonald's. He probably got free coupons. The father takes him to an expensive restaurant. My father, he's trying to buy me. Took me to an expensive restaurant. I couldn't even read the menu. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Now, the reason that I'm saying is you must observe, again, in terms of all the guidelines, in terms of doing custody evaluations, you must observe the parent together with the child. I've seen kids that swear up and down, in and out, they don't want to have anything to do with that parent. And when they see the parent, they go, Daddy, Mommy, and they could fly and leap to them. I had a case that the parent, there was an agreement that the parent would move to Europe. Won't get into countries right now. Move to Europe. The parent was supposed to bring back the kid for Christmas vacation as well as for summer vacation, for a good part of the summer vacation. It never happened. It was taken to court. There was a court order in place that basically the parent did have to bring, otherwise they will relook at the issue of custody. The jurisdiction was still in the country, not in Europe, but in North America. And the kid would send emails to the father. I don't want to see you. Why don't you leave me alone? I have a good life here. I'm in school here. I have friends here. I don't want to see you. And again, and again, and again. Anyway, as it turned out, I said, I want to observe the father with the kids, obviously. I didn't wait till the father got to the office. Till the child got to the office. I had the father with me. The kid was supposed to come, let's say, at 2 o'clock. I waited outside with the father from about 5 to 2. And then as soon as the kid came, the father just came out of the shadow, so to speak, and the kid made a flying leap to the father. And again, we're making a big mistake. Kids could be trained what to say. It's when they see the parent, it's how they react. I remember I observe parents with children through closed-circuit television. So I don't have to be in the room, and I don't have to, what's that idiot looking at us for type of thing. And I happen to be there, and it's great what you see. The mother's telling the kid, honey, would you like, I brought a snack for you. I brought celery. I brought this. I brought cookies for you. Honey, would you like to play a game of, honey, would you like this? And the kid looks at the mother and says, Mom, how come you're talking to me so funny today? You have to see it in reality. It's not just what the child says. You need to see it in observation. Anyway, so the ally syndrome is extremely important. And again, you have to take into account that all of those previous questions are really to ally the child together with the parent. And once the kid says it, the child is going to be more likely to say it again to the professional. Okay, and I gave that example. The morality syndrome. Your father's the son of Satan. We talked about that. We don't believe in cheating the government out of taxes, do we? And I'm sure nobody here does, and neither did this parent. Could you please give me your names afterwards? I'd like to get the people. I've always taught you that one needs to be married before they live together. I just had that recently with somebody. I want you to have a good relationship with your father, but I have a problem with X, Y, and Z. Your mother gave... Okay, here's one. How'd you know what I was referring to? I think I would say maybe about 35, 34, anyway, more than 30 years ago, I had a kid, an 8-year-old kid, and he was telling me about his mother. And he told me that the father told him, forget about the spelling, that was done with voice recognition. Your mother gave and the kid actually told me, my father told me that your mother gave every guy on the block a blowjob. This was done to an 8-year-old kid. And the kid was using it against the mother. So I asked the kid, a what? And the kid said, a blowjob. And I said, what does that mean? So the kid looks at me and, straight face. And he said, I don't know, but it's got to be something really bad because when my father said it, his face became all red. What are you telling this to a kid? And the role of religion, as I said, in some PAS situations, it's a very big factor. I have a killer of a file right now where basically, what is more important, that the kids have a consistent set of values as opposed to going to mother who has one set and father who has a completely diametrically opposed set, even though they raised the kids in the same religion until one of the parents became, excommunicated. So basically, they have contact. Let's just go ahead. And anyway, I'm not going to. Threat of withdrawal of love. If you do not say, I heard this in one file, if you do not say that you want to live with me, I will get remarried, have other children, and they will be my only children. That scares the hell out of kids. And they basically want both parents around. So they often will say what that other parent does. Kids can be easily manipulated. And again, to fear that the parent will reject them. Remember what I said a few minutes ago, or more than that ago, that basically when we're dealing with alienation, we're dealing with conditional love. Alienating parents provide conditional love if and only if the child will do what that parent wants. And this is something that's been raised in some of the literature. One needs to recognize that in some cases, a child may align themselves with a parent with whom they are most insecure, since they may fear rejection from the aligned parent. In other words, my mother, she will always love me. My father may not. I better side with my father because my mother will always be there for me. And that is a factor that you need to take into account. And again, when we take a look at other themes, the alienating parent will give the child the sense, well, he never was around for you. He never really showed you real love. I was the one that was always there. I was the one that got up during the night. I was the one that did this. I was the one that went out, whatever it may be, whether it's the mother or the father. And again, the message that, hey, you and I, we're okay together. We could do everything together. We don't, if he's around or she's around, that's okay. But you and I, we're a team. We're good together. And gives the child a sense that we don't really need the other parent. And again, here's one, that the rejected parent is dangerous to the child in some ways. Violent, abusive, which are not the same things. I saw. Violent and abusive are not the same thing, or neglectful. Hi, how are you doing? I'm okay. Is everything okay? Are you sure that you're okay? Yes, everything is okay. Okay, just wanted to make sure. An hour later. Hi, how's our things? Are you okay? I just wanted to see what you were doing. Calling repeatedly is a way that an alienating parent, you could say, well, maybe the parent is overprotective. Possibly. You have to consider that. But often it's giving the child a message that I have to call you repeatedly to make sure that you're okay. Because otherwise, something may happen. So I'm calling you repeatedly. I guess maybe it's a little bit passé, but years ago, the kid would be given a quarter to make a phone call in a public phone. I don't even know those things exist anymore. But the fact of the matter is that it's giving the child a message. Hey, remember, call 911. Anytime anything goes wrong, call 9. So you're giving the kid a message that the other parent is basically dangerous. I'm the only one who ever really cared about you. I think we went through this before. That could be done implicitly and explicitly. It also shows up in child support issues, where the child is told the only reason that your dad wants you is so that he should have to pay less. Now, you don't expose the kid to a lot of this stuff. You don't do it. But unfortunately, a lot of these parents will do it. What about the parent, for example, that hired a detective to follow up on the husband And basically the detective found where the husband was, with which women he was, and basically the detective took pictures which he provided to the lady who had hired him. The lady had left it out on the kitchen table in an envelope, unsealed. The kid looked at it. How often is it that we hear a parent, a father or a mother, for example, leaving court documents where the child could read them? I know I write on my reports that this is only for the adults and for the professionals to read. It is not to be read with the child. And unfortunately, what happens is that often after we do an evaluation with these parents, did you say this? Did you say this? So I find that alienating parents will do that. Actually, could be both parents that will do it sometimes. I must tell you what I'm also finding, and it troubles me to no end, is that sometimes when we call up educators for collateral sources and we ask for information and they give us negative information and they know, and I mean, they have a release, they understand the purpose of it, they know that it's going to be included in a report, and then afterwards when the other parent says, did you say that I don't do the homework? I don't make sure the homework is done with the kids? Did you say? I never said anything like that. And it's a problem which has led me, basically, one of the things that I like to do is I like to get it in writing. But again, I had a judge recently that said that was the lazy way out, to get it in writing as opposed to speaking to the teeth. You know what? You can't win. But be that as it may. You're an endangered species, makes the child feel that only the alienating parent cares about the well-being of the child. And again, it leads the pressure to the child. Frequent phone calls we talked about, taking the child to the doctors, inspecting genitalia and interrogation. This can lead to rewriting reality or rescripting. And by the way, I don't want to get into it right now, but the whole issue of sexual abuse allegations in alienation, which is probably one of the most serious forms, again, you have to differentiate, we have to differentiate. Is it a genuine concern about that the child may have been inappropriately exposed to sexually inappropriate things for that age of the child, or was it done maliciously? That's sometimes very, very difficult to be, to do. But it has to be done very carefully, following all the guidelines of doing a sexual abuse evaluation, which means evaluating all of the parties that are involved and looking at the videotapes that may have been done or the audio tapes. Anyway, that's another story by itself. Rewriting reality. And I mentioned this before, that the child becomes, confused whether they should trust their own sense of reality. The aligned parent repetitively goes over the situation and resists and changes the child's interpretation. And I got, transcripts and whatever the kid said, mother changes it around to fit her perspective. I had one now that the father did the same thing with basically just convinced, and the child said it. I told my father that I had, a good time with my mother, and he keeps on saying that you didn't have and I said, I didn't, and you didn't have. So again, it's very, very important to take into account. Okay. Okay, we talked about that. Okay. Now, the question is, what questions can we ask to tap these different themes? First of all, I will tell you that one of the questions with younger kids that I will ask the child, is there anything that, after developing some rapport with the child, playing, talking to the kid, how old are you? I'm 5. Are you married yet? No, I'm not. How old are you when you were born? All that kind of stuff. Joking a little with the kid should feel relaxed. Asking the child, if it's it'll be a parent that brings the child. So how did you get here? Well, my father brought me. And, oh, that's nice. He came by car. And what did you discuss in the car? And often they will say, depending on the child, they'll often tell you that they discussed what to tell you. I said, oh, okay. I sometimes will ask the child, I'll do an art link letter, when he did Kids Say the Darnest Things. Is there anything that you were told to remember to tell me? Because I really don't want you to forget anything. And this way, once you tell it to me, we don't have to worry about it. And often the kids will go, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I said, fine, now that you've told me that, I'm very happy that you told me that. Now let me ask you some questions. Now, in terms of One theme that parents often use in terms of alienating a child is restricting or not permitting the child to love both parents or to love the other parents. Asking questions to the effect, do you feel free in your heart to love both parents? Is there anything that you're afraid of that could happen because of the divorce? In fact, Joanna Rawbog, I think that's how you pronounce her name, went into a lot of these questions for each of the themes based on Claywar and Rivlin. Inappropriate and unnecessary information. Is your mom, or your dad as the case may be, upset about anything special that you know about? Yeah, I know, and they'll give you a list of things. In other words, they've been exposed to it. You seem very angry when you mentioned mom. Is there a reason for you to be so angry? Often the child presents one parent as being a martyr, a hero, always there for the child. Is there something that you could imagine that would make the family situation better? A lot of kids will tell you, I want them back together, which is understandable. Contradictory statements. The child will often contradict what they say. Point it out to the child. Again, it depends on the age of the child. But often contradictory statements, asking the child for answers. So, for example, my father didn't pay the mortgage. My mom says she still loves my father. It really confuses the child. And the child may often say one thing good about the father, one thing bad about the father. The kid doesn't know if she's coming or he's coming or going. Use of indirect statements. How did the weekend go? Was your mother happy that the weekend went okay? How did your father feel at the weekend? Looking for indirect ways to find out how the alienating parent views the kid had a good time. Character assault on the target parent. What do you like about being at your dad's place? What do I like? Well, I don't like anything. You don't like anything right now being with your dad? Has it always been that way? When did it begin to change? Getting details. If you have access to photographs, use them. Show the photographs of the target parent with the child, seemingly having fun. Had a kid recently, well, what do you expect? It's a picture. We always smile on a picture. But again, you see that there's some pictures that are not, that it's not a frontal picture, that the kid seems to be having a good time. How do you feel about your dad at this point? Why do you feel about your dad that way? How do you feel about your mom at this point? Very, very often, looking only at words will not give you the whole picture. You could, people send messages non-verbally, as we all know, and you could say, how does your dad, depending on the age of the child, obviously, how does your dad react? When you talk about your mom, what's your dad's reactions? When you talk about your dad, I forgot what I said. Anyway, the other parent, what is the other parent's reaction? Again, using the child as a spy. One case that I will not forget. The father had his phone tapped. In other words, whatever phone calls came in or out were taped. The kid calls his mother. I heard the tape. The mother says, go through your father's drawers. Go to the desk. Look for any paper that has the word bank on it. Unbutton your shirt or your pants. Put the papers in there. The kid was being used as a spy. The kid was even told to open the window and to throw certain things out. It was the ground level. to throw things out the window that that parent claimed was his or hers in that particular case. Age inappropriate statements. Very often a child threatens the parent. I understand that you told the judge, or that you said that you wanted to tell the judge that if you lived with your mother, you were going to run away. Tell me about it. Now, very often, a child will say certain things that they're expected to say. The example that I gave you earlier is a clear case of it, because what happens is that they often will say things that they really don't mean, but they just say it to appease a parent. And that parent will tell it to the evaluator, who basically has to pursue it. So again, when we take a look at the effects of alienation, they can be extremely disastrous. But what we need to understand is that the target parent has to understand that it's necessary for the child to have the truth and to not allow the alienating parent free rein to play with the child's head. The target parent should be encouraged to protect their own relationship with the child. I do tell, even though we have to be realistic, as we said earlier, but again, I think that it is a big mistake for a target parent to give up. Because what often, until they've tried and they've tried and they've tried, but again, to totally give up, I really would not. Whether it's birthday cards, whether it's Christmas cards, whether it's birthday presents, whatever it is, whether it's an occasional message, because otherwise what happens is that the alienating parent will use it to further alienate the child. Well, I guess he really didn't really care about you as well. I also tell alienated parents that if only one of the children is alienated and you take the non-alienated child out on an outing, or you buy them a gift, or you buy them something, another one should go home to the alienated child as well. The child has to see it, and we have to make sure that the alienating parent does not have more ammunition to use. This happens physical survival, the child may believe that his own survival is at stake. Now, strategies and tactics which are used, and I'll finish up with some of these, I guess the time is up. Bad-mouthing. These are obvious. Limiting contact, withdrawal of love, telling the child that the targeted parent does not love him, forcing the child to choose between the parents, creating the impression that the targeted parent is dangerous, which we showed you, confiding in the child the secrets, and again, parentifying a child. The child is 8 years old. The parent is 30 years old. Let's understand, that child is not to be the friend of the parent. That parent is supposed to be the parent to the child. The job of that parent is not to find a friend in this kid. And unfortunately, that's used very often in alienation. Limiting photographs of the targeted, forcing the child to reject the targeted parent. We could keep on going, and I must tell you that the methods that are used by the alienators are vast. There are so many. They are so subtle, you wouldn't even think of it where they're coming from. But they keep on coming again and again. I also urge you, if you are doing alienation evaluations, please also very strongly consider the issue of abandonment in the history of the alienating parent's past history. And also I find, and I'm not going to generalize, but I find a disproportionate amount of borderline personality disorders among alienators. And that's pretty much what I had to say. Thank you. How much access do they have with the, I think Amy Baker may have made the point yesterday. I wasn't here. But it's like, she used the example of a cult. And it's like somebody that's a member of a cult. I mean, it's a brilliant analogy on her part. And the person is really brainwashed by the cult. They're allowed 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week with the family of origin who is opposed to the child's, not part of the cult, those 2 hours are really going to do very, very little. It depends on the form, and I don't want to go into detail. It depends on the form of reunification, what is being done, and how much access does the child have with the alienating parent during the period of the therapy. I know that there's a lot of controversy on a term that they call, that, Richard Gardner had suggested, which other people have labeled a parentectomy. But again, in some cases, that may be the only solution. So again, it depends on how much time these kids have back with the alienating parent. It also depends on whether the alienating parent does see the light. I remember one case where kids refused to see the father under any circumstance. They sent the father the most vulgar emails imaginable. One of the kids who sent, and they were preteens, one of the kids that sent the vulgar language, the vulgar emails, had a history of dyslexia. Her reading and her spelling were extremely poor. Father came, I did the evaluation, showed me the emails, and I knew that the kid had a history of dyslexia, and I knew the kid was having a rough time with reading and spelling. And I asked the kid, the content, the language, leaves a bit to be desired in terms of content. But I'm just curious, I really admire your spelling of the words. I mean, they're absolutely flawless. And I just was wondering, I thought that you had difficulties in, the language arts. And the girl didn't blink an eye. She said, I have a lot of problems with spelling, but my mother corrected it before I sent it off. Now, wait a minute. I wrote a report. I included it. I did find that the mother had been alienating the children in many ways. That was only one among many. And I got a phone call a couple of days after I produced the report that from the mother, and I said, uh-oh, here we go. And the mother called me to thank me because she really did not realize. She was just so angry, but she didn't realize after she read the report and possible effects, blah, 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 she didn't realize. You see, it depends on the amount of time that they spend with the alienating parent. It also depends on the motivation of the alienating parent, the recognition, the remorse, that they recognize that they did something wrong. But just putting them in a reunification program by itself, is not going to necessarily solve the problem. Yeah, I need more information in terms of, we could talk about it over lunch, but in terms of the other factors, yes. Yeah.
Dr. Worenklein.
I've been called worse things. Yeah, go on.
One of the things that you mentioned in your talk about parents not giving up.
Yes.
And even if it means sending Christmas gifts, cards, or other things to the children. What would a parent do in a case where the mother has used the legal system to prevent the father from having any knowledge of the address to have contact with the children? Which then puts the father in a position where the only way that these things can be given to the children is through a third party.
How old were the kids there?
The children are young teenagers.
But at the time that there was that judgment.
Time would have been about 7 or 8 years later.
Wow. I don't know enough facts that, why the court would have made that decision. Unless you had, harassment, a bunch of other things. But again, ideally, I still would say it. I know at a certain point we have to be realistic. I think Rorschach, they got me going again. Rorschach, I didn't mean any disrespect, Richard. Basically, he talks about that. Actually, that's an excellent book, Divorce Poison. He just came out with a new edition. But he talks about at what point do you give up. I don't want to get into it right now. At a certain point, You have to. Yes.
What about the stress put on the child when they receive presents from the alienated parent? You drop the present at the door, you send the email, I love you, you send the card. The child does. If he's really truly alienated, in cases when we call severe, they have pressure on him because even if they like it, the more they like it, in fact, probably the most stressful it is.
I understand that it may put pressure, especially if the other parent is around. However, I think that it is important for the child to know that the parent is still interested in them. And yes, I think that it depends obviously on the child as well. But I still would maintain that it is important for the kids to know that, hey, I don't want to see him. He keeps on sending it. I'm really upset. I don't know why he sends it. And you know what? I've spoken to kids who were alienated and got cards. And they basically would take the card and they would throw it in the garbage. But I know of some, they've told it to me, afterwards they're just curious and they want to see what's in the card. And then they throw it away. But again, it's something. And again, as they get older, hopefully that they will see the light. Yes?
I've been told by a therapist that in a severely alienated child, if the targeted parent gets changed in custody or the legal system makes the child live in a foster home, that the child will never forgive the targeted parent. Is that anything that makes sense to you?
It depends on the child. It does depend on the child. It does depend on the situation. Again, it depends how fragile the child is as well. Again, this whole thing of changing custody, it depends on the situation. And when I say situation, it depends, my main factor is it depends on the child. So again, I wouldn't generalize that it's good or that it's bad, but I am saying that there needs to be significant access with the target parent. And I'm not just talking about 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there, that there's the opportunity to undo what the child has been brainwashed to believe. And again, it should be done therapeutically by people who are trained. But again, just to say automatically foster home, you know what? In some cases it can be very detrimental, yeah. It depends on the situation.
Would you care to generalize under what conditions you would pull a child from an alienating parent?
And put them where?
Either in foster care or with a targeted parent.
It depends on where there's an indication that that other parent will not let go, and that there are significant personality there is a significant personality disorder, or in the plural. The other parent is capable and competent, that it really was unreasonable, it was unjustified. It also depends on the child's personality, how flexible the child is, how his ability to adjust to new situations. I've seen it work. I've seen it work very effectively in many cases. I've recommended against it in other cases where I thought it would be a disaster. The kid would go to pieces, particularly if you're dealing with a fragile child. Again, each case has to be, I can't generalize. It depends on the child. And it also depends on the two parents. A couple more? Yes.
Why do often I get that same question about, well, what do I, how do I deal with this? I'm so emotionally overloaded. I know I don't want to stop trying with the child hiding. Sometimes help me with, not about moving on, moving forward. If you're not, when you say move on, it's not like forgetting, moving forward with your life, be happy, healthy, successful. I tell them that sometimes you have to back off just a little bit for yourself because it's like a festering.
I do not disagree with you. I agree with you completely. The parent it can't become an obsession, a day and night obsession. They have to move on with their life, but at the same time, they can't forget about the kid.
One of the things that I kind of suggest is make sure the parents are copying the letters, the presents, take pictures of them and put them in a box. Also make sure that they put dedicated to that child name, because kids do internet searches for their own names. Come up. And it's just another way.
There are many different possibilities.
It's so far out of the box, there's no box.
But again, as I said, in certain cases, when you're really knocking your head against the wall, no matter, and it goes on and on and on, then you have serious decisions to make. And for that, you need to speak to a professional. Guys, I don't know who to go first. We haven't taken anybody from this side. My preference would be that they would be in the same program. I'm not saying in the same room at the same time all the time, but again, the same. Yeah. Yes. Yes, please.
When you're doing the joint observations between the targeted parent and the child, in those evaluation sessions, do you address some of the contradictory statements that have been made by the child in front of the parent?
No. No, I don't. I don't do it because I may not get the whole picture because the alienating parent may be right there. I would do it on a one-on-one basis. I also would suggest, by the way, it's not a bad idea to also, when you're dealing with some of these issues, to have a tape recorder handy and to get a consent at the beginning in terms of taping. If that's what you do, because otherwise there often will be a denial that the child ever said that. And the child will often deny it once they're under pressure. I never said that to you. But you have to get consent. Yeah.
I think as well, or very often in these cases, that's the step parent. In my practice, working with parents who
It
are
is.
alienating
Very true.
they're very often the person who I think needs to be investigated, understood, is a step parent on either side. Because often they are influencing
I would agree with you. And often the reason that the alienation starts is the presence of the new presence of a step parent and a fear of abandonment of the alienating parent. Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I would agree with you. It's not always the case, but very often it is. I would agree with you. Yes.
You spoke about questions that therapists can ask a young child. What about when the child is a teen, 15 years old, has been taught by the alienating parent the message and is smart enough to stay on message?
You're absolutely correct.
You ask to bring, to get into the real issues without
You might
constantly enforcing the same message.
you might not get the information from from that 15-year-old in terms of the same way that you would get it from an 8 or a 10 or 12-year-old. But however, looking at that behavior, looking at the rationale, why they refuse contact with the other ones, looking at the history in the past, looking at basically generalization to extended family, is it only or is it extended? You'll get a sense of the alienation as well. But again, they're going to be a lot more guarded and defensive than they would have been otherwise, for sure. At 15 years old, yes. But you could still get to some of the stuff that, the inconsistencies and the contradictions. I could give you examples, recent examples, where basically you had a 13-year-old that, was yelling, was screaming, literally screaming and screaming at one of the parents, the target parent, and he's swearing at him and on and crying, and this went on for about 15, 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden, this was during a home visit, and all of a sudden that parent was, preparing supper. Could you please help me, chop the carrots? And all of a sudden the kids, and then like within a space of about 3 minutes, they were preparing supper together. So again, what they say, you have to look at the behavior as well. And again, to me, it's critical to, do the observation and look at the nonverbal behavior. Twenty more questions. Okay. Yes, I didn't take anything from this side. Yeah. Okay. It's an excellent. It's an excellent question. Let me just speak in general. The question is that the law guardian takes everything that the child says, that's the way it is, and they will act based on it. But wait a minute. The problem that I have, and it is a problem, and you could agree or disagree. We have the same thing in Canada, where, as you have here, the law in Canada was changed by the Supreme Court that, in fact, a child's attorney is there to represent the wishes of the child, provided that the child is old enough to give a mandate. Now, my problem with that is that it empowers the alienation, because if the child already is alienated, and man, you have no idea how many times I hear kids tell me, I'm going to speak to my lawyer. I've got a lawyer. I've got a lawyer. It empowers them. And basically, the child's attorney, whether it's in the states or whether it's in, and I'm not saying it's in all of the states, but to me, it's dangerous, especially if professionals, qualified, experienced professionals, are able to state that this child was, in fact, alienated. Because we had a case, I'll give you an example, which is very interesting, out of Ontario, where basically the child's attorney was arguing, but my client says that he wants X and Y. So, and my client is of age. He's of age, and he wants it. And we should listen to the client. And the judge said very, very wisely, I understand what you're saying. However, what the child is repeating based on the expert evidence that we've heard, it is not the child's wishes that the child is expressing. It's the parent's wishes. And consequently, this child was ordered into a deprogramming facility. I think it was in Texas. I don't argue. I got to tell you something. We could spend hours on it. Well, you know what? You have the two different views when it comes to children's law. You have the paternalistic view, and you have basically the right to self-determination at a certain age. This is conflicting, but I find that in parental alienation, it's probably one of the, well, in many cases, it only empowers the child. And if you had any hope of basically reunification, often that will basically knock it.
How do we hold the law guardian, the incompetent, maybe even malicious law guardian, how do we hold them responsible for what they just did?
I must tell you, I have no idea. I don't know. If I could just add to what you're saying, I'm not disputing that, by the way. The obligation, even the obligation is, if it is, I mean, I'm not speaking about New York state law, but what I know the obligation in some of the provinces, that if the lawyer does know that in fact it is not the child's wishes, that basically the child has been programmed, he has to basically state so. I don't know, I would imagine it's probably pretty much the same on that. Is it?
If there reaches a certain point where you're told that the child is programmed,
Yes.
there may be reasons to substitute judgment, but then also there are ethical issues involved with that. What age do you do that?
Correct.
Can you support a change in custody when you know that your child's too emotionally fragile, so you may not
Thank you.
support approach? So there are a lot of legal issues that are involved with that. I think that you just have to acknowledge that it is very complicated in the role of the representation of the child. You're not automatically becoming de facto counsel for the other party.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.